Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Ted Talks Ball. Got a special Thursday afternoon edition, a special Mark Adams edition. You may know him as
What's
at
up?
40. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, what's up?
What's up? Not much. Better now that you're here, that's for sure. It's just saying that people can find you on Twitter X at 49ers Camelot. Same thing with Twitter, and then also you write for 49ers Web Zone as well too.
Yep.
I'll have to add that to the description for the show. I got it in the banner here, but I'll have to add that to the description. But Mark, thanks for joining me here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Just texted my daughter to close this door that leads down here. I'm in my basement, and there's stairs obviously that come down, and there's a door open, and I can hear. I've got a German Shepherd upstairs, and I can hear him barking at something. So
he wants to be famous.
Yeah, he actually is famous. He
oh
yeah. So when we got him, we got him from a shelter, and somebody had poured like some kind of chemical on him, and so he had burns all over him.
Oh my gosh.
And the shelter put a video out of him and got over 1 million views. And so yeah, our dog's more famous than we are. But he's doing great now, and he loves people and loves dogs most of the time. So he's living a good life now.
It's awesome when you can help rehabilitate a dog. Our dog is a rescue dog, but didn't go through as much as your dog did, but still, it's amazing when you can help a dog to get a new life, and really rewarding. So good for you, Mark, for doing that, and your family. Real quick, we got Red Jet Shell in the audience. She's saying, Ted Niners.
What's up, Red Jet?
Giving us some love here. He says hello. She says hello, Mark. And she said, glad doggy's doing well with a loving family. Yeah, that's huge. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
What's your dog's name?
Red. He's a West German Shepherd. And so the West German lines are a little bit more red looking. And so his name was Red already. So we just left his name the same. Yeah.
Right on.
If it would have been Mark, I would have changed it, but
that would be a little confusing, huh? Mark Jr.
Mark the human, Mark the dog.
Our dog's name is Hamilton. He was named by the people who rescued him because he and his brothers and sisters were rescued on 4th of July. So they all got patriotic names as Hamilton, Madison, Lady Liberty, and Independence.
That's cool.
Hammy, Maddie, Libby, and Indy. And anyway, I won't go on and on about dogs, but
yeah,
they're great. My wife liked the way I took care of him. I think that convinced her I could be a good dad. And not too long after, we got pregnant with our first son, and then we just had our second son. I think we're done with the family. We'll keep it at 5, 4, and a pup. But it's been a long month. Our son had a baby illness called thrush. And we just figured it out. It's a fungus in the mouth that causes sores, and so he was really fussy. I was telling people he's much louder than his older brother was. I don't understand why he's crying so much, and we thought it was gas. I think it was gas too, but then it turned out to be this thrush thing. And I had never even heard of thrush before. It's sort of like TH rush, sort of the way you spell it. And
I've heard of it.
And so now we have the meds for it, and so it should be helping soon.
Good.
But a lot of sleepless nights with the baby like that, for sure.
Yeah.
But more my wife than me, I have to admit. I am not great at waking up in the middle of the night. I tend to be a pretty sound sleeper. So, Alberto Soto in the house saying, "What up, fam? What's up, Alberto? Thanks for joining." And she said, Red Jet says, I used to tease and say German Shepherds are killers. Oh, well, they're the sweetest dogs. They're amazing dogs for sure. Very smart. And I think it's more like Dobermans that are kind of skittish and rots. I call them fang dogs, but German Shepherds. I mean, they can be tough. There's a reason why police use them and military, but they're also very smart, very trainable, and not the types to just like go off or snap like maybe like a pit bull or other types of dogs might. So they're awesome dogs for sure. Bang Bang Niner Gang, got Alberto Soto in the house. Oh, we already saw him, sorry, but give us a bang. We got the Sentinel Football Channel. Make sure you check him out. He's saying hello, Empire. And he says Red Jet Shell, of course they are. And they're just saying hi. So just a real quick reminder, we are streaming to both channels. So if you're on my channel, make sure you pop over to Mark's 49ers Camelot, give him a like and subscribe. Same thing if you're on Mark's, pop over to me at some point, give me a like and subscribe. Also, if you're watching on a browser, you can open up too, and watch both shows at the same time. In fact, I need to make sure I do that as well. So give Mark an extra watch as we're doing the show, right? Why not? Just make sure you mute one of them or it'll get a little confusing. Yeah, it's good stuff. And it helps us. Like the subscribers are these thresholds that you have to hit to get monetized and things like that. But once you hit the subscriber thresholds, they're really kind of meaningless after that point. It's really just all about the view hours. So help us get that. Even if you're watching on a phone, whip out a tablet, secondary device, and watch as many places as you can at once. It really helps us. So thanks in advance for that. So let's see here. We got Randy Daytona in the house.
What's up, Randy?
Says Mark is way too good for this show. I agree completely. But every now and then he graces me with his presence. So that's nice. Randy, what does that say for you? Because you're one of my more reliable audience members. But I guess I won't cast aspersions. But hey, just glad that Mark's here. Glad Randy's here. Sentinel, Alberto Soto, Regit Sane, Randy Watson, and the Heezy. There you go. Sentinel says, I can't wait to get a German Shepherd puppy again. I was a kid when I last had one. This time I'm naming him after a 49er.
Cool.
I would if I who would you name your dog after if you were naming him after a 49er?
If he was like a big tough dog, like a German Shepherd or a Roddy or something like that, he'd have to be Debo, right?
Yeah, Debo the dog.
But yeah, dog. I don't know. Probably wouldn't be Jake Moody this week, at least. But I'd have to think on that. But that's that's a good idea. I've heard of some people doing that though.
I've heard a lot of people name their dog Niner, but not after a player, but just Niner. Lots of dogs with that name that I've seen and heard.
I bet there's some dogs named Kittle out there.
There you go. Randy says, Ted, you're moving up. There you go. Slowly but surely, baby steps, Randy.
Now you're starting to get there.
Yeah, no, I've started to get super chats. In fact, and once you get monetized, the super chats start coming in, and YouTube's like, haha, we're not going to pay you yet though because we have to verify your address. So like they told me they sent the letter on Monday, and I'm checking yesterday or Tuesday, yesterday, nothing. Finally it arrived today. So now I think I'm finally monetized to where I can actually get the money out of YouTube. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think there's also thresholds you have to hit before you get paid out. Probably $100 would be my guess as a round number, but we'll see. So folks are just talking. Jet Set Bell. I would probably name mine Kittle just because he's my favorite Niner and he's pretty tough. But yeah, I guess it would depend on the type of dog and the type of disposition. If it was really tough, I might name him like P. Willie for Patrick Willis.
Yeah,
he was pretty tough. But yeah, interesting. So everybody's just saying hi. Oh, Randy says Rathman. That's kind of a good one.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
And after your like Roger Craig campaign, you could go with Roger or RC Craig, something like that.
If you did Rathman though, you'd have to put the eye black under the dog's eyes.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Harris T. Barton, there you go. That's a good one. Harris was a great tackle for us, no doubt, and pretty funny guy too. He's got a good sense of humor and definitely a well educated guy for sure. Ted is the messiah of content. Oh boy, I don't know about that, but thank you. That's very
some high
sweet.
Standard right there.
That is, no doubt about it. I feel touched. and Billy Badass Dog named Niner. He's a big time Niner rider. He knows McCarver, etc. There you go. And she said, my hero Willis. Nice. So, Mark, obviously, not a victory Thursday. We're coming in after our first loss of the season. Do you want to give me your thoughts on the Browns loss and what you make of it?
I just thought overall the 49ers were terrible. They were bad on defense. They gave up 160 yards rushing, which they never do. So they weren't good there. On offense, the offensive line I thought was terrible. Brock Purdy was terrible. Ayuk was terrible. So it's like all of them combined to have their worst game of the season all at the same time. Jake Moody was terrible. And I don't know that Kyle Shanahan was really that good himself. I don't think that that Steve Wilkes was that good. So it's like all of them decided, hey, let's have our worst game at the same time and just get it over. And hopefully they got it out of their system and they'll be fine. I think that Monday night they're going to come out and I think they're going to be angry. But that was a tough, there was some calls that I never blame the refs, but there were two calls that I think if either of them go the 49ers way, then the 49ers win that game. And the first call was right before the half when PJ Walker fumbled the ball. And once he fumbled it, pushed his hand forward so that it looked like a forward pass. That was not a forward pass. It was coming out of his hand before he started pushing his arm forward. That would have changed things. And then I think obviously that play, the penalty against Tashawn Gibson right there at the end, just a horrible horrible call on third down that kept the drive alive, and they went down and scored. And so I think that if either of those penalties or calls don't happen or they don't go the way they went, then the 49ers win this game. But they shouldn't have been in a situation where they're relying on calls by the officials to go their way. And they also shouldn't have been in a situation where we're having to put our rookie kicker out here in a windy stadium, although I don't know if the wind was blowing at that time, but still the situation, he'd already missed once. And so Moody should have made that kick, and maybe Robbie Gould makes it. He probably does, but I just don't think the 49ers should have been in that situation. They should have won this game handily, but just a crappy game. They did not play well.
No, they did not play well. I agree with your analysis completely, including the penalties. I would even add in the hold on Charvarius Ward that came after the Gibson quote-unquote roughing. I thought was BS as well, too. I thought it was more on Cooper or whoever the receiver was than it was on Charvarius Ward. So, yeah, and I got into it with some Cleveland fans this week, and they were like, whoa, that TD to Njoku in the first half, Wills wasn't much of a hold. And I'm like, I don't even know if I agree with that. But even let's say I do, like a penalty in the first half compared to penalties on the second to last drive where you went ahead on the game, it's much different. There's no time to recover after that. So, yeah. I mean, granted, we had enough time to get down and get in field goal range. Like you said, I think the wind probably was swirling because, like, I looked at radar. I didn't look at it right then during the game, but I looked at it a lot during the game, and it looked like a lot of the precipitation was actually east of the stadium. But, there was clearly enough to make the field wet, make the ball wet. It seemed like Brock Purdy struggles maybe with a wet ball. I don't know if it's too early to say that, but I had an earlier show where I said, is he maybe a fair weather QB? Because if you remember in the first half of the Seahawks game, he struggled some, and the Seahawks wild card game in the playoffs, and it rained in that first half, and then it dried out, and the sun came out, and in the second half he lit them up. And like there you go. There's the tale of two Brocks, the wet weather Brock and the dry, or maybe not dry, but drier, dry enough weather Brock, right? So yeah, and I think Kyle, absolutely deserves some blame. I'm not, Well, let me. I don't want to step on it here because I've talked a lot this week already, and you're my guest. So, with Kyle, what specifically did you have issues with? And I'll tell you what I had my issues with.
I feel like just what they were doing wasn't working. And I feel like he didn't really adjust that much. I felt like they could have got the ball out quicker. I think once Debo and McCaffrey went down, I felt like they really needed to find a way to get Kittle involved. And he was the invisible man from that point on. He had 1 catch for 1 yard, his worst game of his entire NFL career.
Yeah.
The third game of his rookie season, he had 1 catch for 8 yards. This was worse. And so somehow they had to figure out a way to get him involved. And I don't really know that way. It just seemed like they were kind of discombobulated. You go back to that the play where Ray McLeod bumps into Trent Williams and then Brock Purdy throws it, and Trent Williams had to duck or the ball would have hit him. And so it's like nothing was working. So I kind of expected them to come out in the second half more focused, more gathered, and just being, like more ready to take on the Browns in that second half. And yet I don't feel like they were. I mean, yeah, clearly Brock had some problems with a wet ball. I'm not terribly concerned about that. I feel like I remember, I think Troy Aikman had a hard time throwing in games where it rained, if I remember that.
I've heard that this week. I'd forgotten that, especially because he has a big hand, and so you think guys with big hands. But what I was saying is I think it has to do with your palm to finger ratio. Like for me, I have really big hands, but I have big palms and short, stubby fingers. So I was never great at palming a basketball. I could kind of do it. I had a pretty good grip on a football just because my hands were so big. But there are guys with smaller hands that could grip a football better than me. So yeah, I think it has, and also some guys hold the football more in the middle where the football's fatter.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys hold it closer to the tip. Pause.
Yeah, Aikman. I remember Aikman holding the ball
right on the back of the ball sometimes.
Yeah, Aikman. He did it kind of like that. It was really strange. I remember seeing him show how he threw the ball, and it was odd how he held it.
Yeah. Welcome, Red Eye. Red Eye says Brock only played 3 games at Iowa. It's over 40 games in 4 years. Not even monsoon rains, just damp, drizzly weather, light rain. And I had heard that he had played well at Iowa State. But the thing is NCAA ball is smaller than an NFL ball. So even if you play well in wet weather in college, it might be that that slightly larger circumference and length. And also I think the NFL balls are heavier too. All those things could contribute to having more trouble in the NFL than college. And some people said the Bucks game was wet, which I know it was wet before. I don't know that it rained much during the game though. The field didn't look as wet as Cleveland, and certainly not as wet as like Chicago, which is one of the wettest I've ever seen. Or the Colts was kind of a monsoon for Jimmy G. There's also a pretty wet one against the Commanders in Washington in 2019, where we shut them out 9-0. Real quick, so Randy called out my play. He said Kyle never learned to run down the clock. He said 3 minutes and 21 seconds. Kyle threw it 3 times with 3 minutes to go. So yeah, it was really, he just threw it once and it didn't go right and it ended up being 2nd and 20. And there was nothing to do but throw at that point. But I was screaming at the screen, run the ball, Kyle, run the ball. And he got cute with it. And we ended up doing 3 passes. The second 2, I forgive him because there's nothing you could do. But the first one I have trouble with. That was one of my big things with Kyle. Some people got on him for the, before the final field goal attempt for not like running more plays to either try for the touchdown or try for a shorter field goal. And yeah, I can see that sort of, but if you look at how the second half went, like, would you say we had more than 50% probability of a positive play on offense in the second half? I mean, we were like minus 16 yards for the whole third quarter. So like, I kind of see like, you're like, hey, we got it. We had a little bit of positivity. Like, let's go, let's capitalize and let's end this thing. I kind of understand that sentiment. I'm not as down on him for that as some people are, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that final one.
Yeah, I don't know. They what they kept doing was having bad plays on first down or second down, like a holding penalty or a sack or something like that. They kept having these bad plays so that every time it seemed that they were in third down, it was 3rd and 20 or 3rd and 15 or something that's just, especially in bad weather, is hard to convert. And so I think that was probably their biggest issue. I mean, their biggest issue was that Cleveland's defense is legit. I mean, they are so good. But the other issue is that they kept having these negative plays on first and second down, which put them in these third down situations. 3rd and long is what I meant to say. In fact, I saw a stat this week. I should have copied it because I can't find it now, but it was something about how they were in 3rd and long, and long being over 10. Almost every I don't remember what it was, so I probably shouldn't even be saying it, but it just showed the fact that the third down was so bad because they had very few third and manageables.
Yeah, it was terrible. Either negative plays, poor execution, penalties, or just really good defense with some of it too. I mean, that Browns defense is really good. I will give them that. Steve was asking, why was CMC's knee bloody? Might have been from when he got shoved into the bench out of bounds, that dirty shove by Greg Newsome the second. Well, it could just be, from hitting the ground. I mean, I get wet grass isn't really likely to cause a raspberry or strawberry or bloody knee, but it could be he came down on someone's cleat. That would really make sense. Cleats are sharp and could easily cut you if you were landed on one. There was one, like when he got his face mask, the guy kind of also landed on him. I don't know. Who knows?
I got tackled one time in high school, and my elbow hit the grass, and it bled and bled and bled and bled. So I think that it probably was something like that. Or maybe it was hitting a shoulder pad or a cleat or something like that, like you said.
There you go. Sentinel says, I know it'll never happen, but I'd like to see Kyle in training camp take the team to places where it rains a lot just to get everyone, or just like turn on a hose, or I've seen like tents with misters or sprayers you can use. I mean, there's ways you can prep for rain games, and I would like to see us prep more, especially Mark, I don't know if you did this, but I went through the rest of our schedule for looking for potential rain games. Now that seems like it might be a little bit of a concern, and 9 of our last 11 games could have rain and or wind, or outside at Levi's, at the Jags, in Seattle, in Philly, and the Commanders. I won't go over all the dates because it takes too long, but 9 of the last 11. So that's a little bit of a concern for sure.
Yeah, I just think that they're probably not going to want to practice in wet conditions too often because there are more opportunities for injuries in those situations. And so yeah, while I understand that you want to get used to it, it's probably not worth it to risk injuries. And the other teams are dealing with the same thing. So it's, sometimes it rains at Levi's. So all the teams are dealing with it.
There you go. Interesting. Randy's saying the Amazon ball is smaller on Thursday night. Is that true? I don't think so. It looks like a cheap off-brand hard-ass football he run into his kids sometimes. Well, you know what used to get really hard out, if you remember the Nerf footballs when we were kids, and you get waterlogged, and those things they would turn into like petrified foam, where they just had at first they're all squishy and nice, and then they end up just like hard as a rock, just not as heavy as a rock.
Yeah, those were fun times.
No doubt. Shout out to other people across the country and the world, west to east. Good afternoon, Rick. Appreciate it. There we go. Glory to the Empire. Red Eye says Kyle was a moron. Agreed. Leading by 4 points, 320 left, throws 3 times, burned 25 seconds. Just, I won't say the word, but just not smart, I'll say. And even if the Browns D stops them rushing, you still burn the clock to 2-minute warning, then punt. Yeah, it was. And running probably had, especially if you're using Mason, probably had as much success as passing in that game anyway. So.
Yeah, they had struggled running the ball for most of the game, but like you said, later in the game, Mason was starting to kind of assert himself. So
there you go. Randy has another theory that his elbow was bleeding, which we've seen a bunch this season for CMC, and then it got on his knee. That's possible too, especially if you're in a huddle or hands on knees or elbows on knees. That could happen pretty easily. So as far as I think we're a lot of people are making these historic comparisons of the Browns defense because they've held teams to 1,002 points over 5 games, and it's the least over the first 5 games of the season of any team since the Colts in 71. And I got in a little trouble with the Browns fans because I said, well, but the Bengals offense is 32nd in yards gained, and the Steelers is 30th in yards gained, and the Titans is 26th. So you got 3 putrid offenses, and then the Niners offense, not putrid, obviously, were first or second, right in there with the Dolphins. But when you're missing Debo, you're missing CMC, Trent Williams, and clearly it was a bad game for Purdy in the rain. I was like, maybe this isn't really sustainable for the defense. I'm saying basically, I don't believe that they'll be historic at the end of 17 games when they play a full schedule. That's why these small sample sizes can be deceiving. But anyway, we got into it a bunch over that, and that's where those penalty arguments came from and whatnot. But what else was there from Cleveland that you think we should talk about, or should we move on to the Vikings?
I think I pretty well said what I was happy
we obviously
with.
Missed Dre Greenlaw a lot on the run.
Yeah,
defense.
I think that was huge. I was pleased with Randy Gregory's first game. He had a sack, 3 quarterback pressures, but he only played 12 quarterback pressure snaps. So in only 12 pass rushing snaps, he made the most of those. So good game by him. And he played more snaps than Drake Jackson did.
Yeah, and he played better than Drake Jackson did by quite a bit. I mean, Drake Jackson really hasn't done much other than maybe a batted ball or 2, but since week 1 when he got the 3 sacks, and then he's just been kind of a no-show.
Yeah,
the rest of the season.
And the concern about the 3 sacks was that he was just in the right place at the right time, that it was kind of a thing where Armstead and Javon Hargrave had kind of pushed the quarterback into him. But, hey, he still made the sack, so I don't want to take that away from him.
There you go. Sentinel says just change the ball to a Nerf at this point. That would definitely help for sure. It's definitely easier to grip. Randy says, talk about putting Rain-X to keep the water away. He says he puts it on his cereal. I don't think that's a good idea, Randy. The Nerf ball was death. Oh, man, those good times. Okay, yeah. I think Rain-X is a joke, but we'll see. But yeah, I don't think that practicing is a joke. I think, or maybe get Purdy a glove might be a good idea. I don't know. It was interesting to see. Real quick, just want to take a quick commercial break here. I have a sponsor now for the channel called TTG. They're up in the right-hand corner there.
Nice.
Travelstead Group, and they're a retail and hospitality logistics company. So, basically they do transportation and warehousing for brick and mortar. They do FFE, which is fixed furniture and equipment. OSE, which is operating supplies and equipment. They do new store rollouts, new store openings as well, relocations, decommissions, from the first mile to the final mile and everywhere in between. Travelstead has you covered. Let us know how we can help you via air, ocean, and land. And then they do closed loop solutions for retail and hospitality. So Nick and Henry are my contacts there, and all their support is 100% US based. So if you have an issue, which often happens in complex operations, the people that are assisting you won't be in some call center overseas who have no clue about what you do. And I just check out the link. It's in the description. It's in my YouTube About page and my Twitter bio, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you follow me. So check out the video and be sure and tell them Ted sent you. And Mark, thanks for letting me pay the bills there. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of good things going on, as far as monetization goes. So that's exciting. And I just want to keep the momentum rolling and keep bringing great content to everybody out here. That's the main thing. And if I can make some money doing it as well, that would be great. I mean, I always just said I just want to have, learn, teach, and have some fun doing it. And have fun when I'm on with you. So thanks.
Yeah.
So Rick was saying when the Niners play, it doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing, just got to get the office line going. Every one of them together running through assignment is very important. It is. Everyone's got to do their job. And there were a lot of mistakes. I mean, like we said, Kyle, Ayuk had a big drop. Purdy missed CMC open. He missed Ayuk a few times. There's a couple times where people blamed Ayuk for drops. I was like, that was more of an overthrow to me. And he threw, obviously behind Ayuk on the interception. There were some things that could be done, but there were a lot of missed blocks too. There were a lot of plays that could have been huge gainers or touchdowns. I don't know if you watched Johnny Dell's at all, but he had a real good film breakdown of it, where basically he was saying it could have been 21-0 really easily early in that game, where we scored really easily with CMC at first, and we could have scored easily a couple more times if we had just executed a little bit better. So that's frustrating in a sec. And then obviously Greg Cosell was saying like, hey, the Browns didn't totally dominate. It was a close, well-played game by both sides. And in fact, I saw Arjun Menon, who does, analytics, the analytics for the game, had both teams very even. Like there were some games where like an interesting one was the Raiders, like they had a negative analytics, but they won. And then some of the other ones where they won and the analytics reflected it. But Bills or Browns and Niners were pretty straight up, it seemed like. Which is kind of interesting. It just says if lesson isn't learned from the Browns, history will repeat itself against Minnesota. What do we think about that?
Well, I agree that if they don't come out, because I did 4 keys to the game for the Browns game, and my first one was that they had to stay hungry. I was a little bit concerned that as well as they played in the game against Dallas, that there might be a letdown. They might not be as hungry, as physical. And so I was a little concerned about that. So that was my number one thing, stay hungry. And they did not. And so I'm working on a keys to the game for the Vikings game and for 49ers Web Zone. And my fourth thing is don't play like you played in Cleveland. And it kind of comes back to that same, how bad do you want this? Because until last Sunday, they seemed like they were super focused and that they were really a different team and had that nobody thought they were going to go 17-0, but they just had that feel to them that we're going to take this. We're not going to lose in the NFC Championship game or in the Super Bowl. We're going to win the whole thing. They didn't play like that on Sunday. Now, that's every Super Bowl team that the 49ers have had has dropped a game that they should have won. There was the 1994 game where they got blown out by the Eagles. There was the 81 team lost, ironically, to the Cleveland Browns, where they barely scored. And the game that Montana had was worse than the game that Brock Purdy had. And I don't even think it was raining, and it was in San Francisco. So every team, I mean, 1984, the 15-1 season, they lost one to Pittsburgh where Ray Wersching missed a field goal that would have won it. So
and he was pretty automatic too.
Yeah, he was, and he wasn't a rookie. And so all of these teams have lost games. The 1988 team lost multiple games that they should have won. So it happens. I just hope that they learn from, but I think they're going to come in Sunday or Monday night, and I think they're going to be ticked.
I think so too. And It's interesting because my article before the game was, will the 49ers have a letdown at the Browns? And I said that we would have a letdown. I predicted 24-13 score, us winning, but that was with Debo, CMC, and and Trent Williams healthy. Also, I assumed that since Greenlaw was questionable, I just kind of assumed that he would play too. I didn't even address him in my article, and so obviously he was a huge loss. So with all those guys being out, I feel like was a pretty accurate score if we had all those guys. So interesting, yeah. I'm going to get started. I wanted to see some of the injuries before I got started too much on my article for this week. And I don't know if you saw, but Jennifer Lee Chan had a injury report pre-practice that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it said that CMC, Debo, and Trent Williams were all not practicing. Okay, no big deal. Kind of expected that, right?
Yeah.
But then it said Dre Greenlaw was not practicing, and I kind of thought he was going to be back to practice, and maybe he will be this week, and it just wasn't today, or maybe he came back later, and she just didn't see it early before practice. But then there was then Aaron Banks was out with an ankle. That one surprised me because I never heard a thing about Aaron Banks all week. And then Isaiah Oliver was limited with a knee. That surprised me. I didn't know that he was injured. And then Odom was full with a quad. And I think that was from last week. But I mean, gosh, if Aaron Banks and Trent Williams can't go, those are our two best offensive linemen right there.
Yeah, that would be bad. I mean, the only good thing is that Hunter, the Vikings' best pass rusher, lines up on the other side. So McKivitz is going to be, McKivitz is going to be facing him regardless. But
did you see that he's leading the NFL in sacks right now with 8?
Yeah, but what I was reading, I saw some stuff from Nick Wagner, and in this, like, it was a big long thread on the Vikings, and in it he said that that Hunter is not that he's not really piling up his sacks on just regular pass rush. It's been when they've blitzed, like when they brought a corner.
Well, they've blitzed the most of any team in the NFL, right?
Right. Yeah. And those seem to be the plays where Hunter's getting his sacks. And so, but again, if they want to blitz Brock like the Giants did, then do that at your own risk. But we'll see.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I wonder if it was the Vikings who dethroned the Giants. When we played the Giants, they had blitzed us at a higher rate than any team had ever done before. And like within a few days, that was a Thursday night, and by the time Sunday or Monday night was over that week, some other team had blitzed at a higher rate than that. I wonder if it was the Vikings. It would kind of stand to reason since they're the highest of the season. I don't recall who it was who sort of took that crown away, but that would be interesting to find out for sure. And then Randy said they looked a little boastful out there on Sunday. Starting that fight before the game, I think, was a big mistake. And isn't it interesting that two of the main guys in the fight, Debo and Trent Williams, both ended up getting injured during the game too? It's like, boy, I hate to say karma, but it seemed like bad karma, man. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. Did you think that our guys started the fight, or do you think it was kind of mutual? Did you feel like one team? Because I felt like Ayuk was clapping and they kind of came at him, and the Debo went at them, and I don't know. I felt like it was almost more like the Browns started the fight. I mean, they were kind of all spoiling for a fight.
Yeah, I really didn't pay attention to it that much. That stuff happens. So
yeah,
but yeah,
not a good look for either team. Let's be honest.
I mean, Kyle Shanahan must have sensed something from his team, because he said before the game that he wanted it to be wet and he wanted it to be a difficult game because he wanted his team to be tested. Now, he wanted them to win, but he also said, I want them to come out of that game and not be looking at their stats and not be, so it's almost like he was picking up on
this overconfidence,
some arrogance or
arrogance.
That we don't need a wake up call because
cockiness.
We're the best.
There's confidence and then there's cockiness, right?
Yeah,
confidence is good, cockiness not so good, right?
Right.
same idea, just maybe a little too extreme. Now that's interesting. And then also, yeah, I mean, I remember Kyle had sent something earlier in the week too, not just right before the game, but in a presser during the week about like, hey, this is going to be a really tough test, like maybe our toughest test of the season. And a lot of people are like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, I quote you, I said, he's not lying, because I had that feeling, and it sounds like you did too, saying, you were thinking of a letdown. And that's what happened. And, and in my article, I talked about that. It's like, the Cowboys, they beat the Jets 30-10. They lose to the Cards. And, the Dolphins, they beat the Broncos 70-21 or 20 or whatever it was. And they go out and the Bills smoke them the next week. And the Bills smoke the Dolphins 48-10. And they go out and they lose to the Jags in London the next week. And I was like, it's a clear pattern here. Like pretty much every team that's blowing another team out of the season went ahead and lost. The only one that didn't was Dallas's second blowout in a row, because they blew out the Giants 40-0 in week 1. Then the Jets 30-10. Then it kind of caught up with them against the Cards. But nonetheless, I mean, these are clear patterns, and we've seen it happen where any team, like no NFL game is easy to win, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And if you take somebody lightly, if you look ahead, and I think that I worry that the Niners might be looking ahead to the Bengals, even though they haven't been as good as usual. Joe Burrow's starting to play better. Obviously, Jamar Chase has had a monster game now. And their defense has obviously been pretty good the whole time. So I just hope we're not looking ahead to them when we got the Vikings this week. Did Bernie Kosar beat Montana? I seem to recall that. That sounds familiar.
No, it was Brian Sipe in that 1981 worse. Game. Yeah, so worse. he was very old school. He was around before Kosar was still in. Bernie Kosar was in college. In fact, in 1984, remember that play where Doug Flutie, where Boston College is playing Miami, and Doug Flutie threw the Hail Mary, and won the game. Bernie Kosar, if I remember right, was the quarterback for Miami that day.
Sounds about right. I'm not 100% sure, but that sounds about right.
He was a good NFL quarterback. He probably should have been in a couple of Super Bowls, but in one AFC championship, his running back fumbled the ball, and the Broncos recovered it. They ended up winning. And then in another game, John Elway did what John Elway did, which was drive the length of the field with no time left and win the game. And so, but Bernie Kosar was a good quarterback who got really close to the Super Bowl a couple of times.
There you go. Randy brought up Jimmy, says he's leading the most comebacks this year, LOL, that he caused. So I guess comebacks against the Raiders, that's brutal.
He's also leading in interceptions.
He's got to be up there in games missed. Now he's got 2 out of 7. I quote tweeted that when Adam Schefter said he was out. I'm like, I don't root for injuries, but I also don't ignore them. Basically, no Niners fan is going to be surprised by this news that Jimmy's out this week.
No.
Sad, but, it's just death, taxes, and Jimmy G getting injured. It's kind of things you can count on in this life. It says Hail Mary. Oh yeah, that was a huge play. It was Flutie Flakes, classic college. Yeah, it's one of the all-time great college games for sure.
Yeah, I watched that whole game. I was just a little kid, and I was rooting for Boston College because they were wearing red. And so in my mind, okay, if the red team wins, then the 49ers are going to win tomorrow. And it turned out that way. The red team won on the Hail Mary, and then the next day the 49ers won. So I always remember that because it was obviously the two were not connected at all, but in my little kid mind, they were.
I did the same thing with Stanford, but Stanford never won. They just got shellacked. I mean, I shouldn't say never. They won some, but never against like USC, UCLA, Oklahoma. I remember seeing Barry Sanders and just it was Oklahoma State, I guess, where Barry Sanders played. But it was unbelievable seeing them just get waxed on a regular basis. And every now and then they beat Cal or somebody, or have some crazy upset. But
until Jim Harbaugh came along,
and then Jim really turned the program around, and they kept it rolling for a while. But I think they've kind of fallen back again. Sadly, but it's really tough to run an athletics program at Stanford because they don't don't give like rides where they're just like, oh, just, show up and here's your tutor and they'll write your papers for you and they'll even take your tests for you if you need to. And here's your, degree factory. You gotta get in on your own merits and you gotta stay in and you gotta study your rear end off there. So makes it difficult, especially on defense. That's where it's really hard to get really great defenders because a lot of them just aren't the most studious folks sometimes. So what else we got? I think, we had tried to say we're going to keep it to about 45 minutes and we're there. Any final thoughts? I mean, obviously Justin Jefferson's out. Marcus Davenport is out. But, Kirk Cousins, and it's a Monday night where you don't necessarily trust Kirk Cousins to do well, but they do have two good tackles. And, I've always said if you give him time, he can pick you apart. I've heard Jordan Addison's pretty good as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
They got KJ Osborne. I feel like their slot is like that kick returner from the Rams. I forget his name, but I'll bring it up here. It was Brandon Powell. And like normally I'd say that guy doesn't scare me, but anyone who's fast against Isaiah Oliver in the slot scares me.
Yeah.
I just feel like he can't keep up more than a few steps with a fast receiver in the slot. So that's a concern, I would say. And then obviously if all these people that are missing practice aren't there, or even if they're there and they're not 100%, that could be a concern as well too for me. But we're favored by 6.5. I think that's a fair number for now. I think it'll change during the week as more of these people come back to practice. I think it'll go up because we were favored by 9.5 over the Cleveland Browns. And I think they're a better team than the Vikings. I mean, I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely on defense. Offensively, I didn't think Cleveland was. I thought they might get a couple of field goals, but they managed to do a lot more. I think that the Vikings have struggled to run the ball this year, and not only have they struggled to run the ball, but they haven't stuck with it. And so I think that if the 49ers can shut down their run game, and I think that they will, because I think they'll be more focused on that this week. If they can do that and make the Vikings one-dimensional to where now that pass rush can just really start to do what they do, then I think they can force Kirk Cousins into making some bad decisions. But, I saw earlier that Johnny Dell's posted something saying that when he's watching the Vikings film, that one series he's thinking, oh man, the 49ers are going to eat these guys. And then in the next series, he's like, oh my gosh, they're really good. So that just shows you that the Vikings have been really inconsistent. They've been up and down. And so I think that if the 49ers can make them one-dimensional, that's going to help. And then the other thing is when Minnesota blitzes, Brock Purdy has to make them pay. And
hit those hot routes.
Yeah, and the Vikings have been, like you said earlier, that they blitz more than anybody in the league. They get to the quarterback a lot, but they've also given up a lot of big plays because of that. And they're not good on third down. So the 49ers ought to be able to keep some drives alive. But another thing is I think the 49ers need to revive that running game. I didn't think that they ran the ball well against Cleveland. And I feel like they need to come out and restore that dominant running game. Sounds like if McCaffrey doesn't go, I was hoping maybe Mason would get the start, but it kind of sounds like Kyle's leaning toward Mitchell. And so whoever it is, I think that they've got to get that going.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Vikings did win something like 12 or 13 games last year, but they won 11 of them by one score. So they could have gone either way on a lot of those games. And now a lot of them are bouncing the wrong way. They haven't won at home yet. I was on with some Vikings guys last night and they told me that they haven't won at home yet. I mean, obviously they have Hawkinson. Wow. He's a concern at tight end. He's awfully good. But yeah, beyond that, it's a rookie Jordan Addison. They got Addison as the receiver. Madison is the running back, but he's kind of little, he's not like a big bruiser who's going to pound you. Pause. So interesting. It'll be interesting to see. And Randy said 11. I think 11 was the one score games were 11 games that they won that way. Yeah, that's 11. Yeah, exactly. I think that's what you're remembering. Randy was there last night. But Mark, thanks a lot for stopping by today, everybody. Make sure you check out at 49ers Camelot on Twitter and X, also on YouTube, and of course, check out his articles on the 49ers Web Zone. He does the mailbag every week, so if you want your ideas to be incorporated into his articles, just let Mark know what you're thinking, and he will do his best to incorporate those into his articles.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
You bet. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll say peace and go Niners.